really what we started off with was the recruitment effects for the Delta Church Drive. We've been doing this for a few months now. And during the first quarter, there have been 22 councils that have taken the Delta Church Drive training, which different councils participated in it. Mixed results depending on the permission by the pastor and the COVID-19 restrictions. We know that there's a lot of things happening with that. And for Richmond Diocese especially, we're limited to half of the capacity of the parish, and sometimes even limit to 250 people. You know, St. Olaf, we're socially distanced, wearing masks, you know, the whole 9 yards for it. But it's great to attend a mass service nowadays. We were watching it a lot of times, Bishop Aaron online or other mediums that we would be able to see the church service online. It's just great to go ahead and then finally attend a mass. And my wife and I have been doing that. What we need to do is focus in the coming months on membership, on Delta Church Drive, and how this can benefit you and each of your parishes. There's training slides that we had and everything else. And with this, I am going to turn it over to Dan, who has done the Delta Church Drive at his council, and he's going to relay how his experience on it and how successful or not successful it was. Dan, please.
All right, thank you, Carl. All right, you can see there's we see here is a 5-step process. Can't emphasize the preparation phase enough. Part of that step includes the training that is run by Supreme, which I strongly recommend you take before you try anything. Just because it is a lot of good information. The presenter, Tom Saborski, is really good. He gives a textbook procedural process to follow. You can see the word modified is marked up there. Part of that modification is that our actual Delta Church Drive was not 100% in accordance with Tom Saborski's training, and I'll point out a couple things in here where that happened. But the preparation phase, I can tell you from start to finish, took us 3 months to get the whole thing done. That was from first talking to Father about doing it, and all the way through the last part of the process was an actual in-house training session that we ran for the new knights at the council. I did have a little concern that I thought that process might have been too long, especially from the actual implementation where we did the drive at the church. We did that I think in the middle of August, and didn't get around to or maybe it was late August, and didn't get around to the exemplification until the end of September. I thought that part of it might have been a little bit too long, and some of the mechanics of that just had to do with the availability that Father wanted for us to do the exemplification in the church. We'll talk about that in a minute, but preparation. So take the course, get all the material. He'll give you the slides. You can review all the slides that he has for the training. But an integral part of that is to start talking to Father. I sent him a letter at first introducing the program, telling him, laying out a whole timeline for what we wanted to do, when we wanted to do it. And I met with him 2 times after that to discuss in detail exactly what we wanted to do and when we were going to do it. I will tell you that Father was obviously a key factor. And I'll tell you why here in a minute, but his excitement for us doing it was critical to the success of the whole thing. But anyway, so we talked about it. We laid out everything we wanted to do. We talked about the steps in the process. He did change it a little bit. Obviously, they're not doing any bulletins in the church. So his part in the preparation phase was to agree that he was going to make pulpit announcements for 3 weeks prior to the actual drive. So he was the man or the person that was actually promoting the whole thing. It's not practical to believe that you can roll up to the church, throw up some signs and posters and have guys standing around in shirts, council shirts on the day of the drive and think that anything's going to happen. He laid the groundwork. He greased the skids. He did all of that verbally for us. So that was part of the modification that we had to do because there weren't any printed bulletins that we could put announcements in. Certainly, if you have access to social media, a Facebook page or a parish internet page, a website, you should certainly try to access those as part of the preparation and laying the groundwork for the announcement for the actual drive. Our father was very helpful. I did draft the announcement for him. It was probably about 2 paragraphs, maybe 8 or 10 sentences. And he read that at all the Saturday and Sunday masses for 3 weeks prior to us showing up. The actual implementation, we went to a Saturday evening mass and a Sunday morning mass. Had a contingent of probably a dozen knights at each. Council shirts, all of that. Father, again, was very helpful. He had us process into the mass with him. He had reserved seating up front for us. As soon as he took the altar and started mass, he introduced us in person. Each of us made us stand up, turn around, wave at the parishioners. And then at the end of mass, he gave me time to make a formal pitch from the pulpit to the parishioners. One thing about this part, another modification, part of the Delta Church Drive is a supply order that you need to put in. And in that order, there are cards and things, but there's a mass card. The Delta Church Drive procedure says that you should give that out prior to the start of mass. Father did not want us doing that. He did not want it given out prior to mass. He did do a blessing. He sprinkled holy water on them and all that stuff. But he made us give those out after mass to everybody leaving church. So that was one change during that part of the phase. We had a table set up in the back. We had Form 100s. We had the app on the phone to capture the cell phone number, the name, and the email address. We had all the brochures. We are nights, or these are nights, or 48 hours and nights, whatever that one is. We had those to hand out. And we actually, from the actual drive on Saturday night, we got it was 4 guys, and then Sunday morning we got 5 guys. So, or 5 and 5. It was a total of 10. We got 5 and 5, and that's Tom Saborski in his training says the average is about 4. We hit a home run on both of those. The actual really important part, and I can't emphasize this enough, is the pastor. He actually pulled guys out of the pew and sent them back to us to register. Okay, I mean, how easy is that if you just got a table set up and the pastor sending a guy back to you to sign the Form 100? So he was very proactive. He knew the guys that he wanted. We talked to all of them, of course, as part of the mass, after the mass. They were all very enthusiastic. And, I thought it was relatively easy to do, actually, with Father's help, of course. The follow-up phase was very critical. You got 10 guys, right? You got their email addresses, you got their phone numbers, you got their names. We had to keep them on the hook until we got them to the exemplification. So the chancellor's job was to call every one of them, email every one of them, make sure they were answered any questions, make sure they knew the timeline, make sure they knew what was next in the process, keep them excited about what was going on. and really kind of greased the skids for the exemplification. Like I said, Father was very excited to do it in the church. In fact, we did it about 10 minutes after the Mass dismissed. We rearranged everything, got our council banner up there. All the degree team was organized. All the prospective knights came up front. We had them in the pews so that we could do the twine breaking and all that stuff. Well, actually, one step prior to that, I forgot this part, though, was the admissions board. We elected to do the admissions board as a group. We brought all 10 of them over to the council. We gave them the whole dog and pony show with slides. We've got our admissions board stuff on a PowerPoint slide presentation that the chancellor and the deputy talked through. We had them all there in a group. They could ask questions. We could answer questions. It was almost a fellowship, fraternal kind of a bonding session, which I thought was important. Normally we drag a guy in one at a time. We got 3 guys pounding on them, telling them all this stuff. But with all of them there, they could kind of feed off of one another and ask good questions. And actually, we had an hour-long session for the admissions board. So that was part of the implementation phase, or the follow-up phase. Exemplification, our degree team, this was the first one that they had done. I thought they were well practiced. They all had the right regalia on, the new regalia, of course. They all did the parts perfectly. Our field agent was there. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on that part. If you're familiar with the actual exemplification, it stops at the end. There's not this whole long discussion about the emblem, the charities. The field agent doesn't get a long presentation part there. We did fit him in. He did hand out some stuff. But we didn't go into all the rest of that stuff. So it was a true exemplification only, 30 minutes start to finish. We did the rosaries, we did the pen, we did all of that stuff in accordance with the procedure. It was done in 30 minutes. Everybody was in the back eating cake after that and, talking it up. So I thought it was critical that we stick to that exact part of the script and not include all the stuff at the end. If you remember, this is nothing against the degree stuff, but we always had the district deputy was there. He'd tell us all about the charities, and somebody would go into an exhaustive thing about the emblem and all that. That's all good stuff, of course. But I think for doing it as part of an exemplification now in the church, like we did with parishioners there, family and parishioners, so we probably had about, including the knights, we probably had about 30, 40, 50 people in the parish watching the presentation. So I didn't think that at the conclusion of that, we should be talking about anything else other than getting to the back and eating cake. We handed out all the goodies and all that stuff. Everybody was excited. But the next step, training session. This is where we brought the field agent in. We had the emblem. We had another whole training booklet that we put together. It had some stuff off the state training site. It had some stuff out of our newsletter. It had, a bunch of stuff, protocol stuff. How do you get into a meeting? What do you do with your card? How do you address the Grand Knight? How do you make a motion? How do you, where do you sit? What does this emblem thing mean? What are the charities? And then the field agent came on and gave about a 30-minute presentation on the insurance products and all of that stuff. So he was able to pass out his paperwork so that everybody could get signed up for a meeting with him. I thought we touched all the bases. Again, we had a nice question and answer session. Father was in attendance again. All the knights, all the prospects were there, and I thought we had a good presentation. We had a total of 11 guys that went through this, but one of them was an E-member that came through another source. So there were 11 guys that went through the exemplification. 10 of them were from the parish. That's how we ended up with 11 total. Can I answer any questions about any of that?
Dan, could I interject for a second, please? I know with the Delta Church Drive, there are individual cards that they request that we hand out
Yes.
to it. Could you please share your experience with the pastor and the COVID restrictions on handing out those cards?
We wore gloves. Father blessed them before the Mass, as I said. We covered all the doors to the church where people could escape. We gave them out at that point after Mass. So we were wearing gloves when we handed them to the folks. Everybody, of course, had the masks on and social distancing and all that. But he was particular about not doing it prior to Mass. And I think it was just a personal preference. I don't know that there was any issue with having a card being given to anybody prior to Mass that was COVID related.
But again, it followed the restrictions, the COVID restrictions. You know,
yes,
we definitely did honor the state requirement and the Diocese of Richmond requirement.
Yes, of course,
COVID, and everything else. So to point out that this is very possible. I mean, it's a doable item as long as you explain to the pastor what you want to do, how you want to do it, and it can benefit both the pastor, the parish, and the council itself.
In fact, we're working on another one for a timeline here. It's close to the end of October, so we're shooting for something towards the end of November after Thanksgiving and maybe the first week in December. So again, to get in and do the drive and then get the admin board done and get the exemplification done before Christmas. So that's a pretty aggressive schedule at this point, but we're going to try it again.
Now, for those of you who are interested in the Delta Church Drive, what we can do, there's several of us on the membership team that has taken the training from Supreme, Tom Shaversky. Well, Tom is no longer, he went and he retired on us, and he's no longer with the Supreme. But we have all of his slides and everything that we can send out to the councils who do have interest in it, including the kit. You send to Supreme to get a kit to hold one of these Delta Church Drives. We also have, again, like Dan, myself, and a couple of other people who have had experience with this. And if a council is interested in doing anything like this, we can help you. We can have another virtual call. We can go through the different items that Supreme thought would be good in holding a Delta Church Drive, and help you out as much as possible.
Absolutely.
This is a successful. It has had success not only in Virginia, but in other areas of the country. Unfortunately, Virginia is more restricted than some of the other states. So our success is limited, but it is possible. We can do it. As Dan has mentioned time and time again, really it's up to coordinating with the pastor and getting his buy-in and getting his understanding of what we want to do and how we want to do it. Does anybody else have any questions right now? We can unmute everybody and hopefully. John?
No questions.
Anything, Jim?
Nope.
Okay.
This is Mark Mitchell from Council 17056 in Falls Church. Are you going to share these slides with us? Presentation just to use for planning?
Yes, if you go ahead and, well, I'll get from John, all of the individuals who attended, and I can send them the slides and a couple of slides that we have during our quarterly presentation, quarterly meeting presentation. I'll go ahead and share the slides on the Delta Church Drive that we got from Supreme, as well as these slides here. Yes.
And it since we're relatively new council, we're only 3 years old. The briefing that your chancellor provided to the prospects, we would, if you could share that with us, that would be wonderful too.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the one at the training session after the exemplification.
Yes.
Yes, in fact, we were tasked by the state deputy, I believe, at the organizational meeting a couple weekends back to get that available to everybody, and I can do that. We've buffed it up a little bit and made it a little bit more generic. We had some council-specific stuff in there, so I can certainly get that out.
Sure. Thank you.
I'll make it available to Carl at the training site and as part of the training department, and then he can send it out to anybody he wants.
One other note that I want to make, and I know Dan did it with his council, did it with all of his 10 candidates coming together. The admissions committee can be held with the individual and their family now. That's one thing I want to emphasize, to make it still a part of a total family experience. The exemplification is a total family experience. The admissions committee, before the brothers and everything else, that can be a total family experience. And I see so much benefit in doing it that way. I mean, with 10 people, it probably would have been difficult, but you have onesies, twosies, to get the wife in, to let her know and experience and feel, what the admissions committee, what the nights are about, letting the candidate know to the council what his interests are. That's all part of the admissions committee. And I think it's just a wonderful time for both parties to get to know each other and work with each other.
Hey, Carl, if I could jump in for a second. Remember, brothers, that even though it says Brian Ripple, I am not Brian Ripple. So any notes that you're writing to the state deputy, you don't have to suck up too much because it's just me. But anyway, there's been a little bit of conversation about the in the chat, because I put in there that there is actually a new script that was developed between Richie Head and myself last year. Bob Straczynski got permission from Supreme to have just a very short COVAR VKCCI. It's literally 2 paragraphs now, and it should be done by the conferring officer. So there's no introduction of anybody else. It's just kind of a, almost like a summary, if you want to call it that. But anyway, I will send that out to everybody on the that's on this, just so that you do have that. And then the other question that was put here, what is the Delta Church Drive kit?
It's something that you order from Supreme. It'll be in the email that I send out to each of the participants tonight. You'll see it. It's one of the add-ins that they have for it.
Okay, and yeah, just to reinforce what Carl and Dan were saying, I do have all your email addresses by virtue of you registering for this. So I'll provide that to Carl so he can send stuff out. And then, Carl, we should probably talk too to see if there's some other stuff related to Delta Church Drive that we want to post potentially in the training room. We can discuss what to do there. And if there's some additional information that we'd want to make available. And the reason I say we want to discuss it, because I think all of you guys know, especially if you've been around long enough, that sometimes just posting information without any real context, sometimes it's not helpful, sometimes it's confusing, sometimes it can actually create issues if people try to run with something that they don't really understand. So anyway, I don't want to say we're going to post stuff, but we definitely email it to the guys on, because it's in context. So if we do anything like that, we'll send out an email letting you know that something was posted. And then if you dozed off during part of this, or if you just really need a sleeping pill one night, this is being recorded, so it will be posted out on the state's YouTube site also.
Hey, well, I'm going to give my plug for, hey, this is really the October, November period is really the church drive time of year for a lot of counselors. And I know because of the restrictions, we're limited in what we can do. But as Ralph Rossi mentioned the other day, now is the time to think out of the box. Think of, instead of, no, I have restrictions, I can't do this. Start thinking of the things that you can do, and changing things, changing the way you do things, which for my council, a lot of times that was a hard nut to crack. There's absolutely no questions about it. You know, you had a lot of people who wanted to do it the same way all the time. But especially with these types of restrictions, we have to start thinking of different ways we can do things and how we can do it. So the membership team stands ready to help. We have the recruitment side of membership. We have the retention side of membership. We have e-member experts. You know, Dan's an expert in recruitment and in Delta Church Drive and everything. I mean, start utilizing this membership team. Start looking at them and saying, hey, maybe they can help in this way. And feel free to contact us and let us help you if we can. If we don't have answers to your questions, we'll find them. We'll talk to Supreme. We'll talk to whoever in the state that has that expertise, and we will go after and get it. So a lot of times it's not necessarily what we know, but it's who we know. It's the experience that we can go in contact and everything else. So with that, do we have any questions or comments or anything? This is a successful program. It's just being introduced not necessarily the most advantageous time of our council lives and everything right now, but yeah, it is valuable for us. John, did you have anything? Or first of all, Dan, did you have anything else to say on this?
No, sir. I think I touched all the bases.
Okay, very good. John, do you have anything to help us out with? Words of wisdom?
I doubt it. No, but I will just say that you know, for anybody that you know wants to stick on longer, because you know, we did schedule this until 8 o'clock. If you have other membership questions in particular, if there's anything you'd like to throw out there while you've got Carl and some of the team on, or if there's really anything else, I mean, go ahead and throw a question out if you'd like to, or if you've heard enough and you're ready to bail, then feel free to do that as well. Because I think as far as content, Carl and Dan covered what they wanted to specifically for the topic. But if you have a question about anything, feel free to jump in with it.
Does anybody have any questions at all?
And Lewis, I'm not 100% sure I understand your question that you sent to me privately. I will tell you that. So if you want to ask it out loud and clarify for me what you're thinking.
Is there a text or a program that we could review prior to doing this? You know, we did one last week without the Delta Church Drive kit, and of course it rained on one of our churches, so that kind of put a damper on it. But we just had our table set up. Father said we'd be back there, and pretty much everybody bailed after church.
Yeah. Yeah, we there is, I will, for all the participants, I will send out the slide deck that I received during the training, which explained the Delta Church Drive. It's going to go into greater detail and some things that you can't do right now because of COVID. That's why we've called ours the modified Delta Church Drive, because there are still some restrictions that apply to this. But I will send it out, and in that group of emails that I received on the training, there will be a kit that you can go ahead and send to Supreme, request to Supreme, and you can get the materials for your Delta Church Drive. And again, if you want any of us to be a part of it / help with it, anything like that, please let us know.
And I think it's safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, and I'm not sure if this is part of what you're asking, Louis, but I mean, it is very much, I guess you could say, scripted from Supreme. I mean, there are things that they want you to do and say. They've certainly tried to lay it out in such a way that, they really want you to go down the path that they've created, so that they're not, one of the things that makes this different probably from, a church drive that we did before Delta Church Drive was putting a framework around it and putting the structure around it so that you can do something that has been proven to work, as opposed to, I think, what a lot of councils do. They get an announcement. They've got brothers in their council shirts in the back trying to stop people on the way out the door. And sometimes that's not the least bit effective because there isn't really any real planning. That's just sort of, hoping guys show up.
The primary script that Supreme looks at is talking to the pastor, like Dan has mentioned, talking
Preparation.
to the pastor weeks in advance, having advertisements in a church bulletin, things like that. Having they give an example of a pulpit announcement that a brother knight can do or the pastor can do. Different things like that. The cards that are handed out to the individuals. They also say put cards in the pews along with pins for people to fill out. But again, with COVID restrictions, you kind of sort of can't do that. So that's why, again, we had to modify it and we had to adjust for what we're doing. Supreme is still looking at it for states and jurisdictions that don't have those types of restrictions yet.
But we did, talk to the priests 3 weeks in advance.
At least, yeah.
And, we asked them, and we had a couple had an announcement in one of the bulletins. Well, not the electric bulletin announcement from the pulpit. That was from the church I went to, because we have 4 churches in our council, and we did 2 of them on one weekend because we had enough people to cover both churches. And one would let us inside, the other one says, no, you have to do it outside. And then it started raining, so, and then we told the priest that we wouldn't pass anything out, we would just take their name down. And, so we followed the COVID restrictions or instructions. And I think like you say, the priest building it up a couple of weeks, but they always see us in church, especially when we used to do more 4th degree stuff, the processions and everything. So they know we're there and ushering and, doing other activities around the churches. But maybe it was a wet weekend also.
Yeah, it's hard to combat both COVID and the rain, inclement weather and everything else. You're right. So,
Thank you.
Again, does anybody else? I will get the information out to you guys by the end of the week. As soon as I get the information from Don and everything, I'll get it out to you guys, and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
And Carl, I was thinking that since you're going to be sending an email anyway, I'll send the script to you unless somebody needs it before Carl sends it out, and then that way, because I'm not sure you even have seen that, but and then he can just include that in what he sends to everybody.
Sure, that would be awesome. I would do that. Yeah. And if there are no other questions, no other concerns or anything else, and I apologize, I omitted the opening prayer. We always have the opening prayer and things like that, but for the closing prayer, the canonization for the Venerable Saint of Father Michael McGivney. I want to end with this. It's all right with you, gentlemen? God our Father, protector of the poor and defender of the widow and orphan, you called your priest, Father Michael J. McGivney, to be an apostle of Christian family life and to lead the young in the generous service of their neighbor. Through the example of his life and virtue, may we follow your Son, Jesus Christ, more closely, fulfilling his commitment of charity and building up the body, which is the church. Let the inspiration of your servant prompt us to greater confidence in your love, so that we may continue his work of caring for the needy and the outcast. We humbly ask that you glorify your venerable servant, Father Michael J. McGivney, on earth according to the design of your holy will. Through his intercession, grant the favor I now present. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
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 Just as a reminder, gentlemen, also November 1st, you have the exemplification occurring on the 30th. EWTN TV is going to have it. The Supreme is for the beatification of Father Michael J. McGivney. And
31st, not the 30th.
Sorry, 31st. See if you can even have a council virtual meeting or in-person meeting and stuff like that to attend that. And then on November 1st, there's a statewide exemplification that's going to occur, for this beatification and everything else. We're trying to get as many people. Council 7469, I believe, is going to be hosting this, and it's going to be at 2:00 in the afternoon. There's going to be information going out on this from the state deputy, from ceremonials and everything. But see what you can do on e-members, see what you can do on these Form 100s that you have and everything else. Try and get these individuals through this exemplification. And also advancing members. Get these brothers to get their 3rd degree. There's a lot of them out there that have stopped at the 1st or even a 2nd degree. They haven't gone on to the 3rd degree. This is a good opportunity to do it virtually, get them in, and get them ready for that next officer role that you have in mind for them. Okay? Very good.